Well, how's it going, Tanya?
It's going pretty good.
She's cranking the old tomatoes, making the tomato juice. I'll tell you what, this is the first year I haven't had to crank the handle. I appreciate you being here. The wifey, she's giving her all the guidance she needs, right, baby?
Yep.
Yep. We blanched the tomatoes, removed the skins, cut them in quarters, and she's the dumper. And then the juice comes out.
The dumper. There.
Let's put it all, wait a minute, there's got more juice. Get rid of it all. Get rid of it all, there we go. The juice goes down into there, and the pulp and the seeds and everything go into here, and then we pour it into this pot. Then we're going to be canning it shortly. I love homemade tomato juice. Wifey likes it with the pulp. I'm not too crazy about that, but you like the pulp, don't you?
Yeah, it's not tomato juice without the pulp.
Without the pulp, huh?
It's just water.
Today is Saturday, the 4th of July, and I have decided that I'm going to spend some time in the morning working on the old Thunderbird. There's a lot of little things I need to knock out. I've been working in the yard so much I had to burn a lot of stuff. All that wood I took off the floor. When I did the flooring in the living room, all that had to be burned. And I didn't want to do it in a big, huge flame, so I used a barrel, broke it up, day by day. Took me over a week, in addition to mowing the yard, which I have to do again. Anyway, today's mine. Today is mine, and I get to work on the car. Wifey said it was okay. I appreciate that. So we're going to go ahead and hook up our electric choke thermostat. And actually, they call it the choke, but it's actually the thermostat that operates the choke, which operates this thing up here, okay? So, I went to O'Reilly's and picked up some 18 gauge insulated wire. They sell it in, I wanted it in a shorter roll, but all they had was 40-foot rolls, and so I went ahead and picked it up anyway. I may need it for something else before this is over. I'm sure I will. It was $7 and some change. Anyway, then I also picked up a few connectors. They had a box of assorted connectors you can buy too. So let's go ahead and hook it up right here on that metal tab, and then I'll go ahead and run the wire all the way down. I'll kind of ream it around, run it all the way down until I get over here to where the voltage regulator is, and then I'll know how much I need. I'll give me another 6 inches or something like that, and then lop it off. Now this may be a little bit difficult to make out, but this is the best I can do. See the I and the A and the S and the F? That I stands for ignition. So I will be plugging in the wire from the choke right there. I'm going to have to get a connector. I think I have a couple of connectors. If not, I'll get some somewhere. Just a connector right there, and then the wire that goes to the choke. Let me show you that. The length has been determined, but the more I looked at this, I didn't like the looks of that. It's just a little too bare right here. Not that there's a lot of voltage there or anything, but I dug around in my little drawer of wires and crap, and I found this. Now it's a little thicker wire. This is 18, this is probably a 16, and it's got some really nice insulated terminals on it. So I think what I might do is go ahead and get that thing off of there, cut this wire in half, and use a terminal. I'll splice them together and then have this terminal on this end, and this one here will go over to the voltage regulators. Let's get that done. I think that'll be a whole lot better. I like the fact that it's all covered with insulation. Now, does that look better or does that look better? I like that. Now let's go ahead and do the other end. Well, I've got a little self-inflicted glitch here. Once I got over to the connector, that's when I decided to see if this thing here would fit in the hole where the ignition connector is. And it does not fit. Anyway, I've got it run all the way from the choke on down through. I use spot ties here and there to anchor it down. I'll be clipping those off shortly. But once we got over here, that's when the problem began. However, this is good. You know why it's good? Because it made me take a good long second look at the connectors, the pins inside that connector. The whole thing sucks canal water. I don't like it at all, and they're rusted down in there. I cleaned them the best I could, but they're just too rusted. So there is a solution for that. The solution is to go to eBay and search 1966 Ford Thunderbird voltage regulator connector. We'll go ahead and click on that. and you will see, look at here, hundreds of them, one after another, for a 66 Ford Thunderbird. No problem finding those connectors, okay? Which brings us to our radio suppression capacitor. Yeah, boy, what a mess that is, huh? That thing's been in there since day one. Is it good? I don't know, probably. But do I want to keep it? No. But what are we going to do about it? Well, if you try to, believe it or not, if you try to buy one of these on eBay, we got clowns asking $30 for this stuff. 30 bucks. There was one I saw. I couldn't believe it. It was a suppression capacitor for an old Corvette. In the can, it's just a capacitor. There's no such thing as a Corvette suppression capacitor or a Ford compression suppressor. It's just a capacitor. The guy wanted $150 for it. I was stunned when I saw that. Oh, some people pay anything for nothing. Anyway, what we're going to do is come up with another solution. And here is our solution to our old capacitor that I want gone. I just want to mess around with it in the future, and I'm not going to pay those high prices. After talking with Brendan about it, he said probably a 0.47 capacitor would work. Stick that baby in there. So guess what? We're going to restuff it. I have restuffed my share of electrolytic cans and radios, electrolytic capacitors, and or filter capacitors, and we are going to do the same here. So this ought to be interesting. We're just going to hollow it out, drill a hole in the back here, run that lead through there, and we're going to be hooking it to somewhere in here, soldering it up down in there once I clean it up. And then the other one will just have a connector on the end. I'll probably use the same one. I may have another one up in my stash box. I don't know. But we're going to go ahead and make it look a whole lot better, and it's going to be just as functional, and it won't cost me anything. I don't know. What did I pay for this capacitor? I don't know, 30 cents? 50 cents? 75? I can't remember. Wasn't very much. It's a long ways from $30. You can bet on that. My initial idea was to go ahead and take this cutting wheel and cut this, off all the way around, okay, and then just pull the stuff out. I may have to ultimately resort to that, but I decided I want to try to maintain this rolled edge, this rolled over edge, and this stuff in the center seems to be pretty soft. So I think what I'll do is I'll take my little rotary tool here, put a little bit on it. If this doesn't work, then I'll use this round bit. I'm going to burr down in there and see if I can't remove the guts without disturbing that rolled edge, because I think this will fit in there after I get it hollowed out, I hope. Well, she's digging it out pretty good. As expected, it was nice and soft, but I've run into what appears to be a metal base down in there. Anyway, let's go ahead and take the needle nose pliers and I'll pick out all this rubber crap. Then we'll take a better look. Well, I've got everything out of there that's going to get out. As far as the rubber part goes, there's a little bit of paper around the outside edge, but I think once that capacitor is heated, that this wire will pull it right out. It looks like it might just barely clear this rolled edge all the way around. So we're going to go ahead and take the old heat gun and we're going to heat it up really good. Then we're going to try to pull it out after everything softens up, just like we did when we fixed the old radios. Well, there it is. It slipped right out after about 30 seconds of heat. There wasn't even any glue or any kind of crap holding it. It just needed to be warmed up enough to where it would just slip right out. No problem at all. Now what I've got to do is drill a tiny little hole in the end here where I'm going to eventually, hopefully, solder it to this tab, the wire. This stuff is so easy. Now you tell me if that capacitor is a Corvette or a Chevy or a Ford. Give me a break. I have drilled a hole in the opposite end here, and now let's find out if this thing is going to fit in there. If I can find that. I doubt it. Let me see if I can slip it in. Check that out. Perfect fit. All the way down in there. No problem at all. Oh man, okay, now this here we can get rid of. Like I said, it was probably fine, but I didn't want it, okay? We can do that as restorers and guys who refurb their cars. We can do things like that. And we don't have to answer to anybody. Now I got to take this back out, clean it all up, try to make it look a little shiny. It is lined with cardboard. I think what I'll do is leave the cardboard liner in there. I'm not going to glue this in or anything. I may put a dab of, I don't know, I got to come up with something that'll hold it all the way down there first so it doesn't, I guess once I solder this up it would hold it anyway, but I'm going to have to plug it up to make sure bugs don't get in, that's for sure. Well, let's see if I can clean it for now. Well, that looks a whole lot better. The plating was pretty much gone off most of it, but it shined up okay. That's good enough. All the corrosion's gone. Once I get the capacitor in there and I get this thing plugged, we'll go ahead and shoot it all with some clear enamel anyway, which will keep it from corroding for a while. Incidentally, I'll be plugging it with this little baby right here if all goes well. This is what I cut off of the when we put in that accelerator stop thing and we needed a rubber bumper. I think this is what was cut off of it, and I kept it. So what we're going to do is shave around the outside edge, drill a hole through the center, see if I can't run it down in there. After I get the capacitor in, we'll bring the wire around and either solder it to this here, or I might even just solder it to the very back here. I don't know. Let me think about that. Next time you see it, it should be soldered up though. Well, there it is, soldered up on one end. The other end, that rubber plug fit in there perfectly. Look at that. I just drilled a hole. I didn't have to sand the outside edges of the rubber plug or anything. I just kind of squeezed it together a little bit and it went right down in there. Perfect fit. Almost like I bought it just for that, huh? Okay, I think what we can do now is, well, I got to do one more thing. I got to get this baby on there somehow. Let me see what I can do with that. Well, that's it, folks. All done. You know, having experience with old radios, electronics, things like that, really does come in handy from time to time, doesn't it? I decided to go ahead and use the old one. There's nothing wrong with it. I just put a coil on the end of the capacitor wire. I stripped this wire back a little bit, slid it in the coil and soldered it up, put some heat shrink around it. Good to go. This is a done deal. It's getting a little warm out in the garage. I need to take a break. A couple days ago we had a heat index of 112. I couldn't believe it. So I'm going to take a little break. We'll put a little primer, and it's clear primer and satin enamel on this thing. I thought that was kind of cool. I like that clear with primer as well. And I taped this off because we need to ground. It's got to be grounded on the body of the car. And this is taped off for obvious reasons because that's where the other wire connects. We don't want them coated. So I'll flip it over when I come back out and do the other side. Time for a break. Well, it's still Saturday, the 4th of July, and they went ahead and delivered unexpectedly the new replacement master cylinder. I didn't expect to get it till Monday actually. They said it wouldn't be here till Sunday, but Sunday afternoon, but I figured Monday. Well, here it is. Saturday's already here. I couldn't believe it. It was on the porch. I said, holy crow. All right, let me give you a little insight. I checked the depth of the piston here against the original that we had already measured here. And again, they're exactly the same. So no problem there. Now, the original master cylinder I put in there was 6.5 inches long. No, 9.5 inches long, I think it was. 9.5 inches. Now, this one is only, we're going to only take it to right here. We can take it right here if you want. Let's do it that way. Let's just take it all the way. You'll see this one's only about 7 3/4, and it's only about 7 1/4 to the end of the flange. Which I don't know. The way I see it, I've got plenty of room lengthways. Our only problem is going to be up at the top because they're about the same. They were about the same height, and they'll hit that brace. So let me go ahead and put it in. See what it looks like. Well, so far so good. Look at the clearance we have now between the shock tower and the end of the, I can stick my whole finger through there now. Now you'll notice the bleed valve is not here. The bleed valve on this one is on the opposite side, which is a big plus. And the brake line is not on this side here. For the rear, the brake line is on the bottom for the rear. It's down there. It's on that thing that's sticking down there. Let me see if I can see it. Yeah, see it? Right down there at the bottom. Right here is where the brake line goes in for the rear brakes. And the front brakes will be on the other side. It's got a plug in there. And same place right here which is now capped off, plugged off. It's on the other side. So far so good. Now let's see what happens when we put this baby back on those studs. We're pretty close, but no cigar yet. You can see that we're just about there on this one. I can zoom in a little bit, get a little clarity for you here. We're just about on there, whereas we were miles away on the last one, and this one here. So the problem here is it's still hitting the bail right here. So here's what we're going to do. Now I'm not just going to hack away. I'm going to try to solve this problem with a little finesse and style, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to have a friend of mine. This is thick steel. I don't have a way of cutting it. You can see right there how thick it is. I think what I will do is bring this sort of like this right on down and around. And that should get, well, maybe not. Maybe we need to go a little bit further. Right on down and around like that. And maybe right on out like so. I think what I'll do is I'll have him cut that baby like that in kind of a nice, even, round curve and see what happens. So right now we're going to stay at a standstill on this until probably the next video. In order to have this thing cut out, I had to remove the rubber bushing that went up from the bottom that sits on top of the shock. So I don't want to be having that thing fried from all the heat, because I'm sure he's going to use some kind of cutter to get right on around there. By the way, there's two kinds of boosters on these cars, the Bendix and the Midland. And I was wondering, you know, maybe the Bendix would be a little bit shorter, you know, back this way a little further. So I contacted, I think it was Jeremy up in Missouri, and I said, Jeremy, and he wrote me, I think, and then I wrote him back and said, would you mind measuring the thickness of your, because he had a Bendix on his car. I know what it was now. I can't now remember. I remember seeing his car that had a Bendix crimped on. It was a crimped booster, whereas this one is held together with a band, a metal band. Now this is what the crimped one looks like. You could see in the center where it was crimped together, and that's what held the two halves together. Here we have the band. Anyway, Jeremy, I said, Jeremy, can you measure the distance from the front to the rear, not counting the bolts? You know, where the bolts go in, front and rear, the studs, rather. Can you measure that for me? And he did, and I measured this one also. Guess what? Same size. Same size. His was on a, I think a 65 Thunderbird, and this is on a 66, so it makes no difference. Same size. Now there is another Bendix, I believe it is, on a 1964 that's a totally different shape than this one and the one I showed you the picture of, but they're all apparently the same size. I measured 6.5 inches front to rear. He measured 6 3/8, so it was an 1/8 of an inch difference between what I measured and he measured. Yeah, no difference at all, okay? Just for your information, just thought you'd like to know that. The banded one and the crimped one. Bendix is crimped, Midland's got the band. Of course, the next question is, when I get this thing back here that goes on there, this brace will go on. How much of that am I going to have to cut away on the side here? This I can do myself. It's thin enough. I'll just work with that. Some of it's going to have to go away because it goes up here like this onto the cowl, right in that area there, and then this comes across. And we're definitely going to have to take off some. Probably in this area here. I don't know. We'll wait and see what that tells us after we get the other piece back. Actually, I hate to cut any of this stuff, but you know what we're doing is we're sacrificing some structural support, which is not that big a deal. Most cars run around, and most Thunderbirds I've seen don't even have these things on. They just took them off and left them off. Easier to get to the engine. Never put them back on, I guess. But you know, we're gaining certain safety aspects that, you know, Brandon and I both want, really. In the last video I told you we were going to go ahead and clean up these wheels because they're pretty rusty, pretty mangy looking, especially on the back. And the two that I already have on the car have been de-rusted and primed and painted and all that stuff, but these here haven't. And I need to get to work on those. But you know, it was so much work doing the first two that I've been kind of putting this off, you know. It's because you can see how mangy it is. And then I sat at the house the other night, and I said, you know, there's got to be an easier way than this. So here's what I came up with. That's right, good old Easy Off. Supposedly cleans 40% faster. I came out here and I showered down on one side of that wheel right there, and I let it set overnight, and then came out and washed it off with the hose. The next day, or that next night, I showered down on the other side and just let it sit for 4 or 5 hours, and then showered down on it with the hose again. And this is what I've got so far, and I haven't even really touched it. Check this out. Looky, looky, look. Is this amazing? Let me get it out in the light where y'all can see it better. Well, that's what we've got now, and all I did was, you know, lay that on there, that Easy Off, and wash it off on both sides. And I don't have a whole lot left to do on this. And this side here is not too bad either. It took all that old nasty black paint off. Yeah, I've got some rust and everything. Well, all I'm going to do is scruff it up with sandpaper, and then, you know, all the heavy spots, and then put some of that navel jelly on there and let that sit for quite a while. I'll keep the navel jelly wet. And eventually all I'll have to do is put that Permatex rust treatment on it, and that'll take care of it, I hope. Anyway, I do have a problem. I'm gonna have to hit you guys up for one more thing. I haven't had much luck hitting you up except for old Bill out there. He took care of me on my throttle stop. I need a rim for a 1966, a 65 or a 66. Let me explain. For those of you who have been with this series right from the beginning, you'll remember that this wheel and tire was down in the mud at the place where I bought it from, the fella's you know, country home out there. It got flat, went down in the mud, sank down, and stayed there for like 3 years, I guess. And it just really rusted up the rim right here, really bad. It's really pitted. However, I think I can grind enough of this down to get a decent seal, but I don't want to use it for a main rim. I want to use it for a spare. Keep it in the trunk. That'd be about all it's good for. So if anybody, now here's the way it works. Now your 64 Thunderbird had drum brakes all the way around, all 4 wheels. It didn't need a big old open area like this for the drum brakes, and I'll tell you why. You need that big old open area on the 65 and the 66 to accommodate the caliper and you know, the whole setup right there. The drum brakes weren't required, so yeah, you can use the 65 rims on a 66 and vice versa, but you cannot use 64 rims on a 65 and a 66. Although on the 65 and 66 the back brakes are drum. You probably could use you know, the 64 rims for that, but you know, you'd never be able to move them to the front if you ever had to do that in a pinch. So we have to go with the big open ones here. That's why, that's the difference in the rims. So if anybody has a parts car or a rim or something, you know, you can get these online, but my God, they want so much money for them. I'm not sure how I'm going to handle that. I've been thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it ever since I started this. I haven't come up with a solution where I could find a rim with a, you know, with a sane price. I'm willing to pay, you know, what it's worth. I just don't want to go completely crazy. So if somebody needs to make a little money, you got yourself a rim. You know, I don't care if it's rusty and gingy and dirty, as long as it's not all rusted up like that and it's not all bent. This one here is even bent, I think, in one spot. I'm going to have to hammer it out. Anyway, it's on here somewhere. It's been banged up pretty bad. So if anybody, like I said, they want to make a little money, I'm in the market for one. Somebody has got to have a 65 or 66 rim. Come on, guys. Anyway, the next step in this process here is to take a good stiff wire brush, if you have them in a, you know, toothbrush size, and just kind of go around and hit that surface rust and try to break it up as much as you can without going crazy. But you got to be careful. These rims have sharp places on them, right down in here. This thing's just right there, boy. That'll cut my fingers all to pieces. Be careful. I'm going to have to take the rotary tool with a grinder, or maybe my drill with a stone in it, and, you know, grind that down. We've got to get rid of these sharp places. They're everywhere. There's another one. Tear your hands up. Be careful. These old rims can be dangerous just for being rims. So all I'm going to do is just kind of go around, break it all up the best I can. wipe it down dry, and then lay some navel jelly on it after I grind down the sharp places on both sides. Well, I knocked off all the high spots where I won't have to slice my fingers open anymore. There was more than I thought on this thing. You got to be real careful with that. And right now I'm putting on the old, I'm just going to slather it around for a while, the old navel jelly. This is old navel jelly. It may not even work that well. I don't know. I may have to go downtown and get another one, another bottle. But I'm just going to slather it around, take off almost all the surface rust after I wire brushed it, and then we'll wash it off and see what it looks like then, and then hit it with that Permatex rust reformer. I'll probably let this thing sit for a couple hours with the towel covered up. I don't want it to dry too fast. But by the way, the information I gave you on those wheels, you know, I knew some of it. I knew that the 64 would not fit the 65 and 66, but the rest was filled in by our good buddy Nick from Vintage Thunderbird Repair. The man is a wealth of Thunderbird information. After the wheels had a chance to soak for, you know, 2 or 3 hours in that navel jelly, you bring it out here and blast it off with a hose, and then go ahead and give it a good scrub down with, I'm just using dishwashing soap to get all that stuff out of there. I'm going to do both sides, and I'm going to do, I put the navel jelly along the bead area on both sides. And then this is what it looked like before I started washing. You just give her a good scrub is all you do. You know, this whole thing has been almost no real work. Well, I'm happy to say all the rust is gone. There's still some residual paint on there that's loose. I think what I'll do tomorrow when I come out is go ahead and give it another shot of that oven cleaner on both sides. Let it set for about 3-4 hours. Wash it off, dry it down, and then go ahead and hit it with that rust treatment. So that's it for now. I'm not sure when the next video will come around. Boy, it is so hot here. Anyway, until next time, this is John.